I wish I knew how to quit you.
Then why don't you?
This is Codependent Content, a podcast where my partner and I discuss the TV shows, movies, and video games in which we've formed an unhealthy relationship. My name is Mattias, and my co-host is Shannon Riley. Join us each week as we try to make sense of the media we continually give our hearts against our better judgment, and commiserate with us as we struggle and fail to let go of the characters, stories, and worlds that we are entangled with. Because just when we think we're done with content, it draws us back in. Hello, Shannon.
Hi, Mattias. Hi,
Welcome.
Ariel.
Welcome. I'm glad you agreed to do this with me this week.
Stay another week.
Yep. We're still here. Today, we are talking about Yellowjackets.
Woo!
Episode 2 from Season 2. These are premiering early. I'm still confused on when this is supposed to premiere.
I know. I thought it was Sundays, but it's Friday.
Yeah, so
I don't know.
we're keeping our Monday recording release date.
Yeah.
Even though at this point, we're now like 4 days behind. But it also gives us a chance to check up on articles and things like that. So I'm sure we can talk about some of that stuff.
Yeah.
I'll definitely bring things up later. In the meantime, first off, why don't we talk about, I want to do a little segment real quick about just other things that we've been watching and excited about. Because last week, right after recording the podcast, we went to go see John Wick 4. Shannon, the mic doesn't pick that up and I can't do anything with it. So you're not helping me with editing. So how about say that again?
I was just mouthing John Wick 4 into the mic while staring intently at the lens of the camera.
The third movie without a subtitle in the 4 movie franchise. Shannon, what did you think of John Wick 4?
I loved John Wick 4. John Wick 4 was so good. I was not bored once. It was so good. Mm-hmm. That's my review. That's it.
I think this is the most video gamey of all the John Wicks.
Really?
It starts off like really strong and it brings back like, bad guys that we've already beat before. Mm-hmm. It's like a good sequel to a game because that's what happens, right? The games always have to find a way to one up each other with the sequels. Mm-hmm. And in order to do that, like you have to introduce the older bad guys, right? The ones that are just kind of like fodder.
Gotta bring them back.
And then, but also, those were the hard ones last game. Mm-hmm. And then this one, they're the easy ones.
The first
we get
ones,
through them, yeah. And then there's even harder ones later. Mm-hmm. It kind of starts off. It's the most. If you wanted to turn John Wick 4 into a video game, you totally could.
Definitely.
But it's so much fun, and then the first action scenes are like the climax of any other action film.
Yeah, you start where most people end.
Yeah.
It's what a great movie.
Yeah, we don't want to spoil too much about John Wick, but if you're a fan of the John Wick series and action films in general, definitely a must-watch in the action genre. I will say, you don't necessarily need to have seen any of the other John Wicks.
No.
Because it doesn't necessarily connect to anything else. So that's what's fun about it. I think like you could even skip 2 and 3 just to get to this.
Yeah.
There's like one thing that's mentioned where it's like, oh, you might not know what they're talking about, but that easily.
But it also doesn't matter, you know?
But yeah, what else are we watching? Succession. Great episodes last night and the week before. Again, just to show that, I don't know, maybe we'll do like a mid-season thing or something. I don't know if we want to talk about that, but we're definitely enjoying Succession right now.
Absolutely.
We started Swarm. Swarm is a lot of fun. It's
Swarm is
really weird, but also kind of fun.
Yeah.
Donald Glover and Stephen Glover and all the other creators in that are just doing some amazing stuff there.
Weird.
So we can recommend that.
Yeah.
But especially if you're watching Yellowjackets, I feel like there's similar themes, maybe not exactly the same, but but I think Swarm, but also might not be for the faint of heart. But that's what I'm saying. If you watch Yellowjackets,
if you can handle Yellowjackets, you can definitely handle Swarm. Yeah, it's just a very, if you like watching girls, young women, just kind of be in a mood and take that mood out on other people, then
Is that what Swarm's about?
she's kind of in a mood. Also,
Is
on a
this
much
Euphoria
darker note,
you're talking about? Because I
think
don't-
it probably has to do with like mental health and like emotional well-being and how we build relationships. So, but also she's kind of perpetually in a mood, and that's great. It's a really good, really weird,
Mhm.
really weird, really good show.
Yeah. And then I think we finished Shrinking last week, finally. I think we were a little behind. We were a week behind, but we finally finished that. And I think that was a really good finale for the show.
too.
I'm really, now I can't wait to see season 2 of that show. Maybe we'll talk about that because there's some interesting stuff going on there, and maybe we should have talked about it. Well, we weren't podcasting when we were doing Last of Us,
Right.
so it makes sense. But
Still, it's surprising. That's a show that kind of like snuck up on me how much I liked it.
mhm.
You know what I mean? I thought we would just kind of be along for the ride, but there are a lot of really interesting, fun characters in Shrinking that I wasn't expecting to like kind of fall for.
Yeah.
But
Okay. I think that's it in terms of what we've been watching and catching up on.
and just like the basics, Ted Lasso, Mandalorian,
Sure.
some cut and dry standard action here.
We're keeping on that content. We're super excited about Suzumi, and there's another movie that what's the other movie we watched? We went and watched this week.
Fucking Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, that's right. That's what we wanted. That's what
Bro.
Dungeons and Dragons.
Come on.
Honor Among Thieves.
Yeah.
Don't forget the subtitle, Shannon. And Chris Pine,
Hot.
fucking amazing. Michelle Rodriguez,
Hot.
badass. Renee, what's his name?
Hot.
And Justice Smith. And do I need to say other names so you can say hot? They're all hot.
They're all hot.
Great.
It's really annoying. They're all very attractive.
And also, if you love D&D, I thought I was going to hate this movie, and I thought I was going to make fun of it, but I feel like if you love D&D, this is a good D&D movie. This
Did you
feels
think
like,
we were going to go hate watch it?
No, I just thought it was just going to be mediocre
Uh.
and written, and
Yeah.
then like the jokes weren't going to land for me. I thought maybe some cool stuff with that, but fantasy stuff is hard to do nowadays,
Mhm.
and much less something that is very specifically D&D, and they've had a bad time about it before. And we've seen so much generic fantasy recently.
Right.
We started a show. It wasn't Shadow and Bone because you're watching that now.
Mhm.
What was the other show? There was another show that we started oh my God.
Fuck, what was it?
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It was like Amazon or something. But,
Yeah. And it just wasn't good.
there's
It
just
didn't-
it's so generic fantasy, and then like the characters don't,
Yeah.
I can't relate to them, but these characters are relatable. It feels like a party, like a D&D thing.
It's
So there's
fun.
like a little bit of a meta context, but it also like embraces just the world of D&D. It doesn't
Right.
feel like meta in a sense. It just works for the
Mhm.
world, but also still like has the semblance of this is a classic Dungeons and Dragons adventure with
Yeah.
friends kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it literally did feel like playing, and we both said after the movie, we were like, we want to go play. Like we gotta play now.
Yeah.
So
that's it. Those are recommendations for the week.
Yeah.
Any feedback, any thoughts about last week that you want to go over? Lots of going on in your head. Recant any?
no, I put episode 1 to rest, and I really wasn't reading any articles about the first episode. It's kind of the second one that I started getting into some more conspiracies. So
I still think episode 1, it probably should have been a 2-part premiere.
mhm. Yeah.
I think that maybe this episode 2 and episode 1, there's just a little bit too much like wheel spinning in episode 1
Mhm.
for us to really get into
Get back
it, because
into
then
it.
you're just like, okay, I just want you to start the show, you
Right.
know? So,
Yeah. It's like preamble.
So yeah, that's where we're at. I think also, if we can track how people are engaging with the show itself,
Mhm.
our TikToks are not doing that well in our episode, like in the terms of viewership.
Yeah,
even
they're not
our
even getting
podcast.
delivered.
So it makes sense, I think, in just terms of Yellowjackets episode 1 just didn't hit.
Get a lot of buzz.
I don't think.
Yeah.
I think episode 2 might be a little bit different because they went all in, I should say. You could say they put everything on the table, and
I knew.
and
I knew you were going to come out here with some sort of nonsense pun.
This is Codependent Content. You can email us at codependentcontent@gmail.com. We spoil everything here in terms of the episode. We don't know what's going to be coming up, so we'll have some speculations. We'll talk a little bit about that near the end of the episode. But if you don't want to be spoiled about anything that's going on, tune out now or go watch the episode and then come back later. As always, you can listen to us live, follow us on social media, all those kind of things. We'll go over that kind of stuff later on. Let's get into Yellowjackets, episode 2,
Pew, pew, pew.
called Edible Complex.
Love that.
Any thoughts on what that would mean, Shannon?
No, stop it. Cannibalism. And I also am kind of interested to see, as they continue to name episodes, if they're all going to be this like lit reference. Because the last one
was about Caesar.
Yeah, the lend me your ear thing, which is hilarious.
I wouldn't have caught that, yeah.
That's the next line, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So the title of last week was Friends, Romans, Countrymen.
Lend me your ear.
Well, lend me your ear is implied.
Right. Okay. So funny. That's great. I love it.
Sure. Yeah. On the nose, maybe.
On the ear.
Great. Okay, I'm done. And this one is, so you think this is also a play on Oedipus?
Oh, yeah.
But that's not.
But I don't know why.
But it's not the Oedipus complex is a different type of complex.
Yes.
I don't think edible complex translates to that either way. It's just a play on words, I think, here. It's not necessarily, I don't know. Maybe someone smarter than us will figure it out. We'll talk to Claire.
Claire,
she knows her Greek tragedies, I should say. Here's, I think, the most important question, Shannon, of the entire episode. We're going to just jump right into it. I think the theories are going to run rampant, and all over the internet, it's just going to be drama, and controversy and whatever. Shannon, who do you think shit in that bucket?
Taissa. Fuck Taissa. Taissa.
Okay, explain yourself.
Or the fucking
explain
coach
yourself.
Guy. Because since we have like Taissa and Dark Taissa, it's the you smelt it, you dealt it. If you're gonna point out the fart, you're probably the one that farted and you're trying to cover it up. So I just feel like it's her.
Do you think she knows she did it?
No. I don't know why, but
okay, but if she's only sleepwalking,
now she's sleep pooping.
That bucket is in the middle of like where everyone sleeps almost. It's like right off to the other room. You think she went down there while everyone was asleep?
Took a huge shit. Yes, I do. And the reason I think that also is because apparently Taissa just sneaks out at night and nobody fucking wakes up in the common area. And then Van can also sneak out in the middle of the night and no one wakes up in the common area. So all these bitches are heavy fucking sleepers and someone could absolutely take a dump in that room and apparently none of them would notice. You just seal that shit real tight, but yeah, I think it's Taissa if I had to guess.
Well, you heard it here first.
Taissa's a pooper.
I'm wondering if to be complete, I was being facetious or I guess whatever earlier in terms of this being a controversy on the internet. But if you bring it up, is this the Chekhov's shit of the bucket of the series, right? Like, who's shitting in that bucket? Like, are things going to slowly keep coming back? And like,
it's Javi.
Is there a person? Is it Javi? Is Javi doing this? Is someone coming in? Or is someone else having some troubles? Maybe not in this necessary sense, but like you screw something up and then someone else like stops obeying the rules. Like, what is the reason for this little thing, right? Is it just to show that like they're stuck in this place and people aren't listening to each other? Because when we don't see her go deal with it, so it doesn't bring us to another scene. Everyone's just sitting here thinking like, one where Shauna, I guess when she leaves, they kind of start eating without her, you know? So there's, I don't know, was that something to get her out of the room or they all again? I don't know what it is. Like, this is such a weird thing. So it has to keep coming back, whether it's just these little rule breaking moments or something mysterious is happening,
Yeah. Did you have a guess of who pooped in the bucket?
No.
Or an opinion? Okay.
No, not at all. Anyone could be guilty. Is it just the fact that to me is like, oh, it's so cold outside. Like, this is the thing that they're driving each other crazy because
Right.
last week it was what's her name with the singing, and this week is so they're having cabin fever. So I don't know. But it's maybe we'll keep coming back and we'll see.
Poop watch.
Wow.
That's a different podcast.
Great.
All right.
So I think
Segue.
so let's actually, we are going to talk about this episode, I think, less chronologically, more like character based. And I think since we are on Taissa, and since she does kind of bookend the episode in a way, why don't we go and start there?
Yeah. Okay. The first thing I have written down about Taissa is with her sleepwalking habit. And I wanted to ask you, why do you think she's drawn to that cliff? Because I noticed the little sigil was etched into the tree. And I was wondering if she was being drawn to that symbol or if she was being like manipulated or pulled by a bigger force. Like, was it to jump off the cliff? Like, why was she doing that?
Right. That's I guess the ultimate. That's a good question. I don't think there's an answer yet for that. Right. But it does bring us to an article that was on Nerdist that I read earlier, and this is something I'd almost completely forgotten about. And the headline of the article is "Who is the man with no eyes?" Right. So when I first saw that man in this episode, I didn't know what I was looking at. I was like, is she following Javi? Is she having like a vision? Like I didn't know what was kind of going on there. I didn't realize we'd seen him before.
Yeah.
I forgot. I just completely forgot about it. So we saw this man apparently when she was a child, and she was there when her grandmother died. And her grandmother saw the man in the mirror. And then she maybe did or did not see this man, right? Ooh. We've also seen one of her son's dolls without eyes, and she thought Sammy did it. But it's possible she did that when she was in her sleepwalking state. So we don't actually know, right? Okay. And then we have seen him again before, and he's also in the opening credits. He's got flashes somewhere in there, including like this image of him turning around and falling. So is he, when we first meet him, if he's this like figure that the grandmother saw and was afraid of as she was dying, she was being peaceful about death, and then suddenly she was scared, right? And there was some idea maybe that like she lost her eyesight, or like she was, what I'm saying? Like, I don't know exactly. I don't remember exactly, but these are the things I remember reading. And there's this idea that this could be like a death incarnate, a harbinger of death. Is it an angel? What is it? Because she asks, like, do you see an angel? Right. And the grandmother doesn't answer. So this is definitely something that could be either tied to a supernatural. This is something that's tied, I think, directly to Taissa. I don't know how this connects to like the wilderness, even though we see that symbol. And isn't that like Lottie's symbol or like whatever, And yes. So whatever, it's definitely tied to whatever Lottie's going through as well. But I find it interesting that this is not the first time she's seen this person, and it had nothing to do before with this like wilderness, right? Right. So I don't know that it was necessarily about the symbol, but it's definitely drawing Taissa to something,
Because I'm even wondering, like, if that's the case, because we know, like, Lottie and Lottie's energy, she's not our like big bad, like dark villain of the show. She's going through something that is going to impact all of them, but she's not like the bad thing. And I'm almost wondering if the man with no eyes is more of a darkness that has been in Taissa's family or in Taissa's life in the past, if being near that sigil is maybe like protection energy. Like, it just so happens that Van was able to stop her, and that's where the sigil is. Because I don't think Lottie like came out that far and etched it into a tree. I'm just wondering then maybe if there's a layer of protection or like goodness.
Well, if I recall, the symbol was there. Lottie didn't make up the symbol. The symbol is around somewhere.
Right.
She's just kind of co-opted it, right?
Yeah.
Because she feels a connection with this
She's
thing.
like a conduit, not an instigator.
This is just unfortunately like it's too vague and mysterious to really like look at, you know, I think, or to get any clear, concrete answers about what the heck is kind of going on. I mean, throughout the rest of the episode, we see her do this. She wakes up and she just seems like really scared about what's kind of going on. And we knew this was like happening. And then we cut to her trying to keep herself awake because now we understand like what she's trying to keep at bay. You know, if she doesn't go to sleep, then she'll hopefully not like run into this alter ego, you know?
Right.
And then we see an image of her alter ego in the mirror, which I think is a shot that you really enjoyed. And like it's just this thing that's like always under the surface with her, you know, and it's obviously like trying to get out. And I don't know why. I don't know if it is her, if it is like you said before, like her true self, you know, or if she's some sort of like is the entire crash like her fault? You know, in essence, that like whatever it is in her thing, are we going to find out that like this is the connection that brought them there in the first place? You know, I don't know, but it's definitely like a strong connection. But again, like all of her stuff is just super, super vague. It doesn't really give us anything to like latch onto or to, I think, to kind of like find any conclusions. It's just there to be kind of creepy. It's there to show, like
it's all theory gate right now too. We're only in episode 2. Like I don't want answers to any of these questions yet. I want to take the full journey of like what the fuck is going on. But speaking of her, I keep calling her like dark Taissa or like other Taissa, but her other self is like omnipresent almost in her day-to-day life. So when she's hallucinating seeing Sammy, I was wondering if that was like a manipulation tactic by her other self to get access to Simone. Because if you hallucinate, hold on, well here, bear with me. This is a goofy theory.
Okay.
But we know from the last episode that Simone said, you know, if you don't get help and fix whatever's wrong with you, like I'm going to the press. I'm gonna blow this up and we're gonna go from there. And a moment in this episode that I really, really, really loved comes right at the end when they're in the car together. And you see what I think is dark Taissa, because this actress, every time she shifts into the other persona, like her eyes narrow a little bit. There's like a tightness around her eyes that I feel shows us the shift of like whether she's in her right mind or her other mind. And you see her eyes tighten. She like clocks the street. She looks back at Simone and she gives Simone this little like, she like raises her eyebrows. And it's so slight. It's like a little micro movement. And then they get hit by that car. And I'm like, did you plan this from the start? Maybe not exactly to like get into a car accident, but it almost feels manipulative. It's like, Simone, you thought you were going to have power here and you are not the one in control. It's me. It's Taissa. It's this Taissa. And I just, that little moment right at the end, I didn't think anything other than like, of course she's tired, she's exhausted, she is hallucinating, she misses her son. That's so obvious. But those eyebrows right at the end, I was like, Simone.
Yeah.
My poor girl.
I guess I didn't think about the fact that like, that this other Taissa, like what the agenda is then, you know? Bizarro Taissa. Like, is it? Yeah, it is. Is this Taissa what even got her the Senate seat? Like in the first place? Oh, that's the other time we see the man with no eyes is when she's giving a speech. And then
really?
He's in the crowd.
Interesting.
After like winning the race or whatever, and she kind of gets a little bit more aggressive, I think, in the speech. And he's clearly there. So there's like, there's a manipulation thing there. Like, this definitely, I'm curious what that kind of agenda is, if there is, and if that's like kind of what even got her. And now that she's getting closer and closer to achieving that goal, now it needs to like get rid of the other people in her life so that it can like fully do something. I don't know. That's an interesting thought, and I wonder, well, maybe I think, okay, I feel like I want to talk about her later, but I wonder where Lottie fits in with this. Because again, I feel like there is that connection. We talked about it last week, how Taissa and Lottie maybe team up or something out in the wilderness. Maybe she becomes like, she allows this person to come out and it becomes like a worse version, and that's what pushed Van away or something. But it becomes exactly what Lottie wants, which is to connect to this wilderness, and it becomes like that version, or whatever.
Yeah.
So still curious if that's going to happen, but because there's a connect, like, she is against even talking to Lottie, or figuring this out,
I was just going to say that. She's so adamant. I'm also obviously interested to see, we know adult Van exists, and I've been excited to meet her, but now I'm wondering, since we play so much this acceptance and rejection thing, if as this dark Taissa just grows stronger and stronger and more chaotic, like that has to be the thing that maybe tips her hand to like reach out to Van to see if that acceptance or that understanding is still there, or even perhaps draws her to adult Lottie, because on the in the woods, Van is the one that's like, hey, if you're struggling, we should probably talk to Lottie. And she's like, I'm not fucking talking to Lottie, and neither are you, right? You're not. And she's like, oh, what? No, but she is. Van is talking to Lottie. And I think it would be very interesting to see. Taissa seems so against. We kind of see, we see who's more inclined to be Team Lottie and who's more inclined to not buy into whatever she's going with. And I feel like Taissa on the surface is someone that's like, no, this is ridiculous, and we're here with rules and goals and tasks to complete. But I think there's a part of her, probably because of the weird shit that she deals with, that has a kindred spirit almost with the weirdness that Lottie deals with too. And I think we're building to an understanding between the two in some capacity, like we were talking about last week. But I think, as Dark Taissa in present day timeline grows more chaotic, I think that's going to help bring those two characters together in present day. Yeah, for sure. I think we'll talk more about Lottie, I think a little later. I think quickly we can move on to Misty and what's going on with her, because we don't see much of young Misty doing anything, but we do get a little bit more of like that storyline, and I think we'll get more next week. But her trying to figure out where Nat's at and what's going on, and her friends are still ignoring her. And then who walks into her life but the one who puts sick into forensics. It's Elijah Wood.
Our boy, Elijah. I love this introduction of him. That like little Elijah Wood, he can do no wrong. I once got to stand next to him while he smoked a cigarette in the smoke pit while I was at a film festival in Austin. So that's why he's super cool dude. And I didn't bother him once. But he's always been super cool. Like I've been to that film festival and he's always around, and he's always super cool. But like I love Elijah Wood, and I love that he's in here, and I love this already, that connection and like everything. And it was clearly his voice last week, and just the way that he's going to play off of
Christina.
No, Misty.
Christina Ricci.
Sure. Character name, Shannon.
You said Elijah, so I thought we were going to actor names.
We don't know his name actually, so I don't know that we only know that he's puts the sick in forensics. So I'm calling him Elijah for now, unfortunately.
Okay. All right.
Because I don't know that unless he's in the credits as a name. We
didn't look though.
So I can't wait to see their dynamic, because it's already playing out without even them having spoken a word to each other.
Absolutely.
And this is the show I want. I don't even want anyone else. I just want Elijah and Misty going on adventures. here's the thing, though. Here's the thing, right? We see that Elijah has given Misty a note, clearly knows who she is, like knows her full name, gives her a note that, and he's on the case, right? And invites her to like join him on the case. Like he's all on board. This is kind of what he does. He's a citizen detective kind of thing. It's easy to understand that, like, okay, so he could figure out who she is, so he knows his stuff, right? But I think we always have to remember this is a world where 20 years ago, a group of soccer kids, like, were in the wilderness and came back 2 years later. And, you know, it was a major news event, right? If he knows who she is, he knows who she is. He knows what she went through. You know, I'm willing to bet that this is not a coincidence. You know, they didn't like meet each other on like a little forum in this way and have this little tit for tat kind of thing. And then he just wants to like get connected. He's been, if he like, he's not a dummy. Like he would have looked her up and he's interested in something. You know, there's going to be some other ulterior motive there. Do you think?
Yeah, very briefly, I wondered if he was at all connected to Lottie. I have no like reason to think that. I thought similarly. I'm like, this is not a coincidence. And with all the like unreliable narration that we have, I don't see coincidence playing a big role in this show. So if he's here for a reason, in the same way that random guy in a bar is actually cop playing undercover detective. Like everyone has a different motive for what they're doing on the surface, and I don't think Elijah Wood's character is any different. I just don't know what that motivation is.
I mean, do you think that's even his mother that he's pushing around? And
my headcanon is no. I like to think that
he just found some old lady and is like, my mother needs to, just to get into Misty's life, you know? There's some definitely con artist shit going on here. I'm all for it. I want them to be friends, and I want them to do this and like be weird and like accepting of each other kind of thing. But also like I don't trust him, but Misty immediately is kind of interested. Like, okay, because he's like in the know. He's like, oh, I know you're smart enough to figure this out, Misty. You know what I'm saying? Like she's enjoying this. She doesn't have friends. We know that, you know? And like all her friends are ignoring her, and she doesn't get compliments either. So like she's finding like a kinship here. And I think that like he's charismatically playing with her, you know? And unfortunately she might drop her guard.
Yeah, my only hope is that it turns out not to be malicious, because Misty is insane in her own quirky way, but like is not a cruel person at all. Yeah. And I think, you know, people with weirdness to them or weird energy, like they are often lonely and made fun of and kind of pushed like just to the fringes. And I don't want that for her. I don't want people to prey on her in that area. Even like right in the beginning of the episode, Misty's sitting next to the girl that is always humming. And that like one bitchy soccer girl we met in the last episode is like, oh, great, now there's two of you. It's like when two weirdos meet and connect, like that's something really special because...
Yeah. Well, they're playing, it's Crystal, right? And they're playing like swords outside. You know, later on, they're like, probably like reenacting Peter Pan or something, you know, like...
and like what a wonderful... That's another interesting thing about the show is we don't get a lot of those like... light moments. We don't get light moments. Yeah. We don't see any of that. So to see Misty like playing with a friend, or to hear a girl humming and singing outside, like those are just little moments of joy and lightness in this world of cannibalism and like sleepwalking and drinking blood tea. Like it's so nice to see those, and I'm so glad that it comes from someone like Misty, because that makes sense to me. So yes, I'm with you. I think Elijah Wood's character is not coincidentally just involved in this, and it is my deepest hope that he does not hurt her, because she will kill him and get away with it.
I have a feeling they're going to commit murders together, and I don't know.
They're going to commit murder together.
I don't know what. Wow. Okay. Let's move to. I mean, the only ones we really have. Let's do Nat. because I think she can be another quick one, and then we'll do Shauna and Lottie.
Okay.
Right? Let's talk a little bit about Nat.
I have a lot of opinions about Nat this episode.
Okay, start.
All right. So, my biggest thing is the interesting pit between Lottie and Nat. Just how different they interact with their surroundings.
Mm-hmm.
Nat is like hunt, gather, find, report, and Lottie's like blood tea, sacrifices,
Mm-hmm.
prayer circles, and in regards to Travis, I have written down that she's not necessarily experiencing like a sexual jealousy or like your typical teenage jealousy of, oh, I think my boyfriend might have a crush on another girl. It's like she's seeing Lottie actively providing Travis with something that he needs to cope with what's happening that Nat cannot provide for him because of who she is and like what she believes in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a big like point of conflict in their relationship is that
Sure.
Lottie's able to provide this kind of airy hope and Nat is like, no, it would make more sense to ground in reality, even if reality is harsh. And yeah, I think just that jealousy comes more from a place of, you know, you're watching someone that you really care about cultivate this different type of connection with someone else. And you're like, why isn't that us? Like, why can't that be me? Why isn't this the thing that's like working more for you?
Yeah, there's definitely, yeah, she wants to be there for Travis, but what I'm getting is that her whole thing is like trying to get Travis like on kind of like to stay with her in a sense, you know.
Mm-hmm.
There's a selfish motivation because this is where her like coping mechanisms start, right? Travis is her coping mechanism. Her having a purpose is her coping mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
And she's losing him, not just to like Lottie, but she's losing him to the idea that Javi is like still out there, you know? Like she doesn't have him, like she can't survive out here. Like she's already like had sex with him. They're having like this little relationship where like, you know, it's her little warmth in this cold, you know what I'm saying? And this is what's keeping her kind of like almost alive in a sense. And in the same way that like she eventually goes to other things, the idea of like giving, like doing the thing that she does, which is to pretend that Javi is dead and that she found something of Javi's, and is not for Travis's sake. I don't think. Like I think that's more for her, because if she doesn't do this, then she doesn't have her coping mechanism. She doesn't have the thing that keeps her like sane and whatever, right? Because that's what she gets at the very end of the episode, is he comes back to her in a way, you know, physically and emotionally, right? And I feel like that's gonna come back to haunt her, because
Absolutely.
we don't think that like Javi's dead for whatever reason, but he is probably still out there, and he's going to find out the truth. And that's probably what drove the wedge, because they're no longer together. And obviously then she goes to like other coping mechanisms. And that's why she's been in rehab 5 times, you know, and she's been, you know, woken up having overdosed probably multiple times before. We see like a little flashback, you know, she's dealing with that now because she's struggling with not having these coping mechanisms, and she's back in this wilderness kind of dealing with that, even though she doesn't know it, right?
Yeah.
I think it really is just her, like she's doing it out of her own self-preservation, you know, because if she doesn't have Travis there and she doesn't have him like fully like committed to kind of her, then she has no one, you know?
And I would go one step farther with that too, of like, almost all of our actions are self-serving in some way, even if we on the surface can say like, oh, I'm doing it for you. I know like this is not malicious at all on Nat's part. I think it is self-serving in some ways, but I also do think it's hard to watch people that you care about suffer. And Nat almost like tries to play the role of God a little bit. She thinks that she knows best.
Sure.
And that the healthiest way for everyone, her, Travis, to move forward is if Travis admits and recognizes that Javi is gone. Because she thinks she knows for certain that that's true. So to take that power in your own hands and manipulate someone else's reality, no matter how full of good intent you are, like there's a selfishness and an accidental cruelty there, because it's not your place to change someone's and like cultivate someone's reality.
Mm-hmm.
And going a little further down that road, if I'm Travis and I've been looking for my brother for 7 months now, and my girl comes back with some blood on pants, I'd be like, you take me to where you found this now. The fact that he just like, she just says, I screamed, I did it. Like he's gone. And Travis is like, fuck, okay. It's crazy to me that they've been leaving every day to hike for 12 hours through the woods, and you wouldn't be like, you take me to where these fucking pants were.
No, I think it's because like he knows, because if it's been 2 months or however long, like he has already had these doubts, and he already like assumes that Javi is dead. So this is just like for him, like confirmation. Like he doesn't need to see it, like it's, I think it's unfortunately like he's already been feeling this way, and he's already assumed that he's going to get this information at some point. And this was just it. So I don't think he can be it's been a long time. I don't think it's as easy to say, and putting it in his shoes, like, and how hungry they are and how much they've actually searched. And like, he's been trying, eventually it comes to a point where like, you can't do anymore. Like, what's he going to do? You're going to go out there and he's going to find nothing, So
with how quickly he sponges every time Lottie says like, he's alive, I feel it. He's like, hell yeah. Even seeing the pants,
it's happened once. You say every time, but that's only been.
Well, it's been 7 months. Like, I'm sure that Lottie hasn't only said that one time.
7 months since
they crashed.
Yeah, but Javi hasn't been missing 7 months. He's only been missing like
2 months.
Yes, he was there all the first season.
Yeah, I know, but I thought
you're
he
thinking
was gone.
because they say Shauna is 7 months pregnant, but
right?
That was when they crashed. But no, he hasn't been missing since the crash.
No. I knew that. I just thought it had been like a much longer amount of time he's been gone. But anyway, I feel that
if it's been longer, if it's been okay. The thing is, though, is like if it's been longer than 2 months, then yeah, even more so. Like you have to assume that this person's dead and you're not finding them. There's no reason.
I'm surprised that if he's been like this hellbent on finding his brother, even the pants with the blood, to me, wouldn't you be like, that's just proof that he's been here. Maybe he's hurt. Like you might have missed. I don't know. I just to see blood on pants and be like, yes, you're dead. And then he just folds them and like sticks them into Jackie's pyre. And like, that's his goodbye to Javi. I felt was just kind of weird, because if that was his biggest motivator, that was just a really quick, like, boom for me. But I guess I kind of see what you're saying, because I did think he was gone a lot longer, and I had a feeling that Lottie has been feeling Javi's presence. So I didn't think it was only that one time.
I do think that people try and find plot holes where there are not supposed to be like plot holes in these kind of things, because like, oh, I wouldn't believe that, or because they have information that they like, because we're an audience member. We're not a person that's like starving. We like have very little food, very little energy, very little sleep, like so many different things. And we've been out here for like 7 months, like, and like we've searched everywhere. Like there's a whole lot like to imagine, like, and again, the writers, it's the point is that she has to convince him, and for whatever reason, for the plot to move forward, so like, is it believable? I don't know if you have a problem with that. Like, it's not, but to me, it's not like a plot hole. This is just what happens,
no, I don't think it's a plot hole either.
This is just something that like he does believe it, because especially for us, there's no reason to, if you want to make it quote unquote believable or whatever, or realistic, then that means like, okay, so he doesn't believe her. So then she brings him out to the middle of nowhere where he found it, and then they're not going to find anything. Like there's no reason to do that. There's no scene there. There's no camera. There's no reason to bring the camera there when we know as the audience that this is a fake thing anyway, and she knows it, but he doesn't. Like the whole point is just the fact that like she convinced him. That's really it.
Because the lie is more important than anything else. I'm like, man, if you're North Star keeping you going for X amount of months, I just feel like, oh, poor kid. But yeah, I mean, that's not even the point. I don't need to argue that point very much. The most important thing that happens during that scene is that we see Nat with hair on her legs. And I have to say, I love to see it because I'm sick of seeing these shows where people are supposed to be in like post-apocalyptic, terrible, horrible situations and all the women are perfectly waxed and like just like the right amount of dirty.
Yeah, what
right?
did they do on Lost? Was that
fucking Kate was always just hot as shit and clean.
Yeah.
And while they were also next to the ocean, so I feel like them being cleaner makes more sense because they had more opportunities to bathe. It wasn't the middle of winter, blah, blah, blah. But the hair grows, guys. Hair grows. And we saw Nat's hairy legs, and shout out to Nat's hairy legs.
Is that 7 months worth of growth, or is it
I mean, everybody has different growth. You know what I mean? I just... not me petting my leg hair right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I thought that was super cool.
Sure. In terms of what's going on with her adult Nat, do you have any thoughts, any more going on there?
I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Do you?
No, not
pretty brief this episode.
Not necessarily. I mean, she's stuck, clearly still here. You know,
Mm-hmm.
We don't really know how this is going to play out, but she's dealing with her own, I think, withdrawal symptoms. You know,
yeah. That little like panic attack thing she has at the end.
Yeah, and I think Lottie is doing that on purpose. Obviously, again, I still think that Nat is going to find out that she's in the wilderness and doesn't know it. You know, she's back at the place where it all started, and that's that'll be like a season ender or something. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah.
Do you still think that that girl is the daughter?
There's
Shauna?
no reason for me to believe otherwise, so I'm gonna just ride that train until
someone did post on TikTok that they think it is Nat and Travis's daughter.
Okay.
But there's probably no evidence there either. But we don't. I mean.
So we got 2 pregnant girls in the woods.
I mean, or could be, you know, like we don't, and they're going to be out there for a long while and they're the only ones having sex. And, you know, I don't think they had, suitcase full of condoms. So that is an interesting theory.
That's interesting.
I will say for sure. And if Lottie has Nat's daughter,
yeah.
Hadn't thought about that one, but I'm still curious to see what's kind of going on there.
Yeah.
Speaking of daughters, let's go to Shauna.
Poor Shauna.
Let's just like leave out kind of like what happens at the end because we obviously want to talk about that.
Yeah.
There. Shauna and her daughter Callie, because still dealing with teenage problems. What do you got going on here?
Backing up to the very beginning of the episode, just young Shauna still coping with the loss of her best friend, I thought was really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I love that even in Shauna's head, Jackie's still like mean to her and belittles her and like sometimes kind of talks down to her. And I think that not only is that indicative of the type of relationship that they had, I think it's also indicative of the way that Shauna like speaks to herself and what she believes about herself.
Mm-hmm.
Because we know that Jackie's dead. This is Shauna talking to Shauna's inner self. And the fact that she's like, you slept with him to have a taste of what it was like to be me. And like he slept with, you know what I mean? Like that's so awful. And you see what a like secondary character Shauna felt like in their relationship. But even creepier than that, you feel the hunger seep in as Jackie starts to talk about like, it's okay. Like, I don't need it. I won't miss it. And Shauna's so disgusted and repulsed. Like, I could never. What do you mean? No, I buried your ear. And she's like, no, you fucking didn't. Stop. Like, don't play you and don't play me. You're just playing yourself right here. And I think that's really interesting. And right at the end, when Jackie's like, you're the one holding the knife, I was like, she is, and she's gonna eat her. And that comes into play later.
Sure. I'm not a fan of this trope, this like, you know, like talking to your dead like best friend kind of thing, you know, and it, like it's you, but it's her. It's like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a fan. I don't get it. I don't know why, like, yeah, as you said, like it's showing us a lot of like how Shauna views the relationship and them. I guess it feels, it's a lot of like telling, not showing for me, you know, and because it isn't actually Jackie, like it always rings like, well, at the end of the day, she's not really there, and it's just showing us like it's just to show how, I guess, crazy Shauna is, and to me, it's like this is where it doesn't feel believable, you know, like I'm just not a.
Well, I'm wondering, there's something tickling my brain from the first season about Jackie, like, being the leader of everything.
She was the captain of the squad, and there was at times where the coach, not Ben, but the actual head coach was bringing her aside and saying like they're going to be looking for someone to follow.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, so
there's like a theory on Vanity Fair that someone posited about the Antler Queen,
that's what I
which
was
we've talked
say.
about, is actually possibly Jackie.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Well, I'm just talking about the article in terms of what they're saying, and that's where they mentioned that like they have to follow someone, you know, and then she is kind of held up to this position within the team by the coach, and does that continue being true, you know, especially with the hallucinations and all the things that are happening and how Shauna's viewing that. I mean, is that what you think is happening?
Yeah, it's literally exactly what I was going to say. I didn't realize
but
that
if
it was
Shauna's the only one that is viewing that, seeing Jackie and having conversations with Jackie, and it's not everyone else, like I don't know how that leads to,
well,
you know what I'm saying? Is this Shauna's thing or is this everyone's thing, right?
Well,
like
I think everyone could, I don't think it's a far cry that everyone could adopt like a new way of thinking. And I don't know if there's anything to be said about like, once you eat a person, like what does that do? But if we all share in this like Eucharist, basically, where we feast on the charred body of our dead leader, like, is there a way that person does become the thing that leads you? And I'm gonna have to go read that Vanity Fair article now because I didn't. I would like to hear someone smarter than me try to put it into words, because that was just like, I just wrote some vague things down about like the Antler Queen and the fact that she has always been a leader, and now they just don't have a leader. It's not Lottie.
I think that people still look to Lottie though.
Not everyone.
Do you? Okay, but I want to get to Lottie because but I mean, before then, we should talk about more about what's going on with Shauna. I mean, we don't really know. We don't see much of like adult Shauna anymore. But we do get a lot of like her daughter, Callie, and like what she's dealing with. We know that, who is it? Oh God, the police, Kevin, with a Y, comes up and kind of does like a little check-in kind of interrogation with Shauna, and she just like blatantly lies and stuff like that. The police are like, we knew they were going to be looking at her. There's no way not to, right? I don't know how they made the connection. Well, they haven't made the connection, but they're theorizing.
Yeah. I feel like it has to be the phone records, right? Because he says like we have a lot of.
That's the thing. Is like there's definitely like a connection to be made.
Yeah.
But they still haven't. They don't have enough to show it. You know.
Well, why do you think Callie comes in and saves her mom?
Why is Callie doing anything?
Callie,
as you tell me, because like even whenever we get that little moment afterwards where she's about to leave and Shauna says Callie, and she's going to tell her to go out the back, but there's like that little moment where she wants her to say something else, and I don't know what she wants her to say. Like, what does she want? Is she wanting an apology from her mom? Is she wanting her to like just tell her the truth, you think?
not to circle back to The Last of Us, but honesty is important. And I do think
I think teenagers need to stop looking for honesty because
I think at our core,
yeah,
there's so much that we can try to understand and forgive if only the other person values us enough to be honest with us. And the reason that people get so angry and that there is so much pain is that, not only did you do this thing I don't like, you then didn't tell me, like you hid it. You changed the reality of the situation and you decided that was more important than being honest with me about what's really happening. So I think that there's so many characters that we see in media and in our day-to-day life, like honesty is what you want. It's that trust. And it's like, if you just say and admit the thing that's in front of you, there's a way to move forward. But if we're all going to ignore the truth that we all know, it's just like a constant barrier. So I don't think if Shauna was like, hey, sit down, I'm going to tell you everything, I don't think Callie would just immediately be a perfect daughter and a totally different person. I think she would still have huge, like, hard emotions to shift through. But I think that would show Callie that her mom, like, respects her and sees her as a person and not just like a daughter that she wants to hang out with and go to the mall and watch movies. Like, if you're dealing with this big thing and you're going to fuck our life, at least have the, like, balls to tell me what's going on.
Yeah, I think
Maybe.
all very no, for sure. I mean, she's definitely looking for something there, and I think it is like she wants the truth. She just wants to be included. I don't really know. There's something about Callie that I don't know if maybe it reminds me or if it also possibly reminds Shauna. Do you think Callie has like a little bit of Jackie energy? To her, and about her that like Shauna maybe loves, hates, doesn't want, what I'm saying?
That's so interesting. I didn't see that, but I like that. I
feel like
idea.
It's coming out more in this episode, just like the kind of general attitude kind of thing, but also like she does go and kind of protect her mom or save her, so there's this care there, but it's all very like, then she does these manipulative things, you know what I'm saying? Like, and she's trying, and then the like kind of rebellious nature or whatever leader nature of like going and hitting on a guy at a bar, even though she's a 16-year-old,
Callie.
which was going to be such a weird storyline, but then it turns out to be a cop anyway. So I'm like, okay, maybe it's still weird, but at least he knows who she is,
Right.
I was like, oh, she does this and he doesn't know. Like, I'm gonna be so mad. But so that whole thing is going on. I mean, what do you think is ultimately gonna happen with Callie? Do you think she's on her mom's side?
If I can be incredibly transparent to you, adult Shauna's storyline is the one that I care the least about, and I feel bad. I just don't. I don't know. She murdered a guy. I'm like, where does that come into play? I don't know what Callie does. Like, I don't understand her motives. I don't really know where we go from here, and I don't know what the point of all of that is and how it ties me into any of the rest of what the other girls are doing.
No, this is a slow burn thing where it's not as present as it is for Taissa, but I think we eventually have to get to the point where the real Shauna has to come out. Like, she's not only lying to Callie, she's like lying to herself. Like, she's never really true. Like, and last episode we got her trying to be truthful with her husband. But other than that, she's still hiding behind all these half-truths and just lies.
Yeah.
But the true Shauna is the one that like can kill someone and like
I was gonna say, is true Shauna a murderer?
I mean, like, has no problem like getting rid of a body, like has a calmness about her with these like darker things, and like she's putting makeup on a corpse, and
right.
There's something I think that we're going to learn about Shauna that she's still hiding, that like it's going to eventually just have to like come out, and we're just seeing her like just completely like disregard it and ignore it and all this kind of stuff. I wish it would move faster. You know what I'm saying? Because like we're not getting the glimpses like we are. It's not as overt as it is with Taissa. But I think that's basically like the same thing, right? Like you said before, like this is the primal nature, the true self that she is, or darker self, whatever,
Yeah.
and that's what she's going through,
Yeah.
But yeah, not much going on there. I don't know what it's going to do with the Callie storyline.
I feel like, okay, I'm trying to think now, how does this story like excite me moving forward? I'm wondering if that looks like Callie does somehow end up in on it, or if Callie ends up getting connected with Lottie in some way, because it's like, so what do we do with her husband and her daughter? Are they just here because she murdered? You know what I mean? I'm like, how do we tie all of them in? And I'm really hoping it's not just Shauna reckons with the fact that her primal self can be a murderer and then her daughter snitches on her and she goes to jail. Like, I don't know. But I think it would be really interesting. I think it'd be really, 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 really cool, actually, if somehow Callie and the girl who I think Shauna's like Wood's daughter is, if like they met somehow or got connected in some weird way. I think that would be a really interesting dynamic to explore. But what is Callie ever doing?
Yeah, I guess there's no, again, this is all just a mystery box show and there's no clear conflict for you to like kind of like latch on to of like obstacle that they have to kind of like overcome kind of thing. It's just like, what is everything about? And that's why we're just asking questions, because there is an idea that if this is like a Breaking Bad, then like the wife and the son, they end up eventually learning who their father really is and then like turning against him kind of thing, And if that's what they're trying to do with Shauna in the similar vein of Breaking Bad, like, is that what eventually like kind of like leads to, she has to like live a double life kind of thing, but it's not as clear cut as that. I don't know that they're trying to like, there's no other kind of references to the similar tone, and then there's always like just all these other mysteries going on that we're just trying to figure out. And that was what, again, I hope like we would understand more of like what this show wants to be.
Yeah.
Because season 1, like the mystery worked. It's not going to, I don't think we can maintain that for all of like season 2.
Right.
We got to like kind of get to like, what is the thing that we're trying to get to, what is the deal with the show?
I do have one more slight idea. I keep thinking the theme to me is like acceptance versus rejection of different things. And that could be something that plays out in Shauna's family dynamic, because all of these people are dealing with like accepting or rejecting their inner selves, and how the people closest to them also either accept or reject them. So I think that's also an interesting theme to watch play out. But that's Shauna. That's pretty much all I have to say about her. I feel like I didn't spend a whole lot of time with her this episode, but we have Lottie left. Do you want to transition into Lottie? What do you have?
You just did.
Would you want to start us off? What's something you've got percolating in your brain?
Well, we don't really see much of young Lottie in this episode. She's still, this is where we left her off. Like, I think people are starting to kind of like look to her. Like anytime like a decision needs to be made, for some reason, like Lottie's the one that allows the decision, or kind of like has to be the person that make the decision. Even Taissa is like we can't allow Shauna to do this. We have to get rid of this body, and she's telling that to Lottie. She's not telling it to like. She's kind of saying it to everyone else, but like Lottie's the one that's there,
Lottie's stamp.
And Lottie has to kind of be like, well, Taissa's right, I get, and that's kind of what leads us to this thing. And whenever Shauna, even in the later on, she's like, when they eat Jackie, she says she wants us to. Who's right next to her? Lottie. She's telling Lottie like, this is what Jackie wants. I mean, even when they even burn the body, it's Shauna, Taissa, and Lottie. That's an image for you, to show like what is going to be like. This is the leadership trio kind of thing. Yeah, there's definitely like an interesting thing there. We're not seeing anything really happen with Lottie, but I just do notice these little moments where they keep looking to her. Like even like you said, when Nat comes back. In her little argument with like Lottie. It's always like kind of comes back to her. I mean, she's the weird ringleader that's kind of grown around this. We do have more of her as an adult, and then we kind of learn as she talks to Nat about what actually happened to Travis. And so we kind of like finally figure out what this mystery is. Do you believe Lottie is a reliable narrator or an unreliable narrator?
I don't think anyone in the show is a reliable narrator. I don't trust any of them. So I think there is truth in what Lottie's saying, and I do not think it's the whole truth. It just is what it is. And I don't think it's malicious either. I don't think that she has some sort of weird, like, secretive
It's
intent.
weird that you don't think anyone's very malicious in this shit, because I think there's definitely...
Well, like I said, we know, like, the showrunners have said that Lottie is not the bad guy of this show. She's not the villain. She's not our big bad. So
Sure.
I have to operate under the idea that she's not ever operating out of malicious intent. It might be self-serving. She might be, I'm not saying she can't do bad or like silly things, but she's not inherently mean or doing things cruelly. So in regards to her version of things, I think it's similar even like when you and I talk and you tell me something and I'm like, I believe that that's how it happened for you. But as someone else who was also there, it happened for me kind of in a different way. And both realities can be true. So I think that Lottie's dealing with something like when we see, what's that blonde girl's name?
I don't know.
Just there's so much weirdness going on. How can Lottie be a reliable narrator?
Well, I think that there's two moments that I think when we see everything that Lottie tells her about Steve, right? Everything feels like it's being told in a truthful manner, except the moment where she says, I asked him and he said that you would just make things worse. We don't see that. They don't show us that moment, you know? At first, like, you can believe that to be true. You can make, like, you already can make sense, but we don't actually see that moment play out. So I feel like that might be not true, you know? So maybe he did want Nat to be there, but she didn't want Nat to be there, you know, for whatever reason, right? And then the other thing that plays out is after, like, he hangs himself. I said Steve, Travis. You didn't correct me. After Travis, like, hangs himself and does the thing, that's where it starts getting weird, right? I'm starting to think that that's the part that is something different happened there. Whether it's she is the one convincing him to do that, which is probably true, or also the fact that, like, she was not in the right state for whatever reason, and when she was pressing the down button, she wasn't.
That's what, yeah.
She was pressing, like, the up button.
Think that's very plausible.
And she just doesn't want to admit that something happened, you know? So those are the two moments that, like, there's definitely, like, a not truth, but I also don't think that, like, if we were going to paint her as, like, a complete, like, liar and, like, none of this is true, that they wouldn't have shown us, like, kind of, like, all these things anyway, you know, that it would have been more, like, kind of, like, cut up or something, you know, like, it wouldn't have felt, like, truthful, you know? So
I think you're right. And I also think that that's sort of what I thought too, is I think she did, because we're looking at her and then we see Travis's legs just get higher and higher, but we're watching her experience something with that blonde girl from the woods who flashed the crane, whose name I can't remember. Like, she's experiencing something, and even if she maybe didn't, in her right frame of mind, push the up button, like, that's why I think that she's an unreliable narrator, because I think she's telling the truth as she remembers it, even if that's not necessarily how it happened. Because, like I said, I don't think she's a murderer either. So I don't think she looked at Travis and was like, boop, we're not going to bring you down. We're just going to hang you longer.
No, but she's lying. And also, like, what, like, she's trying to convince Nat that he's the one that wanted to do this. And I don't know that that's true. Even if she didn't hang him, like, there's a possibility that she convinced him to, like, she's the one that said, like, we have to, in order for you to know what's going on, like, you need to get close to death, you know.
So even though we saw him say that, that could be lying. I mean, you're right. It could be. We
just don't know enough about Travis to really know, like, what the dynamic between him and Lottie, like, ever became, or what it was, and all those kinds of things. For whatever reason, she is trying to convince Nat that it's like, she didn't do this, you know, but I don't know that we have enough to trust that, right? Because this is the first time we're seeing it. We didn't see what actually happened, you know? And so, like, there's definitely, like, a reason he called her, and I think he was having visions, and the wilderness was coming, and that's why he needed Lottie. Specifically. And I think Lottie's maybe the one that ended up putting him in that situation. I don't think it's true that she woke up and he was gone, you know? Because that doesn't make any sense. We see that she understands these things. She is about to bury someone alive for whatever kind of ceremony that's kind of going on. I think that is part of whatever she's already doing with this cult. I don't think she would just sit around and be like, yeah, this is just your trauma, you know? That's not her. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's not telling Travis, like, this is just your trauma. You're fine. Like, I'll be here or whatever. She doesn't not do anything. This is her deal, you know? Yeah. And so I think that she put him in that situation. And I think, unfortunately, she didn't know that was going to eventually kill him for whatever reason. That part, maybe, like, she just kind of fudged, you know? I don't think she meant to kill him, but she meant to put him in that situation, for sure. Moving on from that, we finally get to the big thing about the episode, and finally the moment we've all been waiting for since episode 1. They eat a body, Shannon.
They do. They do.
We saw this coming last week.
We did.
Jackie is the first one to get eaten. Conveniently, maybe supernatural forces, you know, kind of allowed it to happen, you know, for whatever reason. The woods want them to be cannibals, I guess. The woods, or just wants to keep them fed, you know, because that's
so I mean, it might not be malicious. It's like
keeping them alive.
When we're the smoke monster on Lost, and the smoke monster is like manipulating everything. It's like there's a version of the smoke monster in the woods, and that's what I think.
Okay, well, that whole thing ends up being purgatory, so you don't know. We don't know what.
Maybe we're all in hell.
So, what do you want to say about this whole thing?
I love the way it looked. It was shot so cool to intercut it between this, like, Greek feast and this just cannibalistic, like, hunger depravity. I thought it was so cool. It was so fun to watch. It's crazy. It was so fun to watch. It was really visceral without being overwhelming, which I really like. Like, you know exactly what's happening. You can see exactly what's happening, but it's not gory. It doesn't, like, dwell on it almost. And I really like that. I don't know if everyone waits for Shauna specifically, but I like that Shauna's the first person that, like, takes a piece. I just think that's super fitting that Shauna's going to be the first person to take a bite out of Jackie. And then everyone's like, fuck yeah, we're going to eat. So cool. It's just so cool.
Sure, Shannon.
It's really amazing. Pretty to watch.
I'm a little bit on Ben's side here.
Ben is fucking useless. I'm gonna eat him next.
He's completely useless. He's allowed this to happen. I feel like he brought this upon himself by not taking more charge.
From not doing literally fucking anything.
He's allowing everyone else to kind of, like, run their own kind of camp, and
he has no, you know, purpose.
And he's not doing anything. But we're gonna eat him. At the same time, I'm with him. I'm like, nope. This is This is not fun.
If you were starving,
I'm not Shannon. I'm just saying I understand his side of this. This is not cool to me, you know? Especially the fact that like these teenagers that I'm technically in charge of, I'm like the only adult in the room, and all of them, like, I'm scared of all of them now.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Oh
like,
yeah.
there's no way that I'm not
terrified of all of them.
I mean, I was already probably terrified, and now I'm like even more so. Like, here's the thing, though, is like there's no, in terms of like, again, if you want to talk about believability, like there should be like a layer of like just burnt, like melded clothing onto her, because they did not strip her naked. So now there's just eating like a lot of like clothing as well, you know? Like there's a whole lot, like this is not this. I imagine someone's gonna get sick from this anyway, but like this is just like there's no planning here. This is just monstrous, you know? And there's no, to me, it's like, it doesn't matter how hungry you are, like this is like, we don't have our next source of food, you know? Like this lasts you like how long? And then you've done what? You know, like no, I would have much rather that body had burned and then like we kind of passed over the cannibalism thing for now, you know? But it's there. It happened.
Yeah. I mean, I totally, it is such a fucked up thing, but I just can't imagine like, if you're so hungry and then they all just smell it. It's like, what do you smell? It's almost like probably in that moment, it smells like fucking like fresh brisket on a barbecue. Like,
I guess burning bodies don't smell good, but I don't know.
Like in that state.
I mean, just from what I've heard, because, you know, I've had friends who went to war and burning bodies don't smell good, but like, I guess I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. If you know what, like a good burning body would smell like, let us know, I guess. But I can't imagine burning bodies being particularly delightful either. But I was reading an article about the number of like Jackie dummies that they made for this scene. And that one is like the hero one that's all dressed. And then when they made the one that they eat, their goal was to make it look as like juicy and succulent as possible. That they didn't even really want it to look like a person anymore. They wanted it to look like brisket or like cow, like something else, which I thought was really interesting because I'm sure to the girls just in that like fever state moment, it did cease to be the charred remains of their friend and did become like a source of sustenance. And that's why I'm really interested for the next episode, because in the light of day, quite literally, like you have to reckon with the fact that you all just snapped and like ate your friend. And that's going to be really interesting for all of them to reckon with, because, you know, when you're desperate, you can do anything. And then when you're not desperate anymore, you're like, oh, fuck. And now you have to deal with it. And I think that's going to be really interesting to watch play out.
Well, this was my only question from this. And we've kind of already answered it, but do you think we're going to see Jackie again?
I do. I think her presence is too big to be without, even though we've eaten her. It's going to
be like more Shauna hallucinations kind of thing.
That makes the most sense to me right now. I can see, especially because we already know Shauna does not deal well with guilt. I'm sure then eating your friend adds a layer of guilt, and I can see Jackie still haunting her in that way, since Jackie has kind of become her inner voice. But I think Jackie will somehow play a larger role outside of just Shauna's emotional well-being. I just don't know how. What do you think? I
kind of hope it's the last time we see her.
Yeah.
You know, I like the actress. We talked about it.
She's great.
But again, it's not a real person, you know? And if it's just an entity, like if this was like, if there is a supernatural element and then like the ghost of the wilderness ends up taking on Jackie's visage, that's one thing.
Yeah.
Right. But I don't know if that's true. Like, I don't know that's what the show is. Like, if we're actually doing, we still don't know, right? What this supernatural thing, like what's kind of going on here. But again, at the end of the day, I don't like the haunting kind of thing.
Mhm.
If they're going to be like haunted by Jackie and everyone's going to kind of feel Jackie's presence and like feel her telling them something or whatever,
Right.
I'd rather not see her, you know?
Right.
I'd rather that just be I'd rather them kind of express that in different ways or
Mhm.
like her presence is constantly there, you know, like there's weird. I'm thinking for some reason of like Game of Thrones, where Ned Stark at the end of the first book and the end of the first series, like after he dies, we don't see like his kids like having conversations with him. You know what I'm saying? They don't. They're not dealing with like the haunting of their dead dad. But in my head, the ghost of Ned Stark never leaves the rest of the books or the series. Like you always feel that reverberate throughout the rest of the thing, and that's what I want for this show is for Jackie to kind of keep reverberating. I thought that's what it was going to be, instead of this kind of like haunting, kind of cheesy, you know, like she's arguing, like Shauna arguing with herself kind of thing. But that's just my own personal thoughts. I don't know if you like it and you want it, then go for it. You know,
No,
that's
I
just
get
my own thoughts. I kind of hope it's the last we see of Jackie in this kind of haunting kind of form, you know?
Yeah. So I'm sorry, just to clarify, you wouldn't mind if like, we'll call it the ghost of the woods took on her visage? Or you don't even want to see that either?
If that's what the show wants to be, then I think then we'll be in a clear something supernatural is happening. And as opposed to the vagueness of it.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's just a choice, you know? But I think you're going to, at that point, you're clearly going to be you're going to be in that territory of like, this is real. So like, if that's what they want to do, then great, you know, but you got to make that choice. You got to make it clear. None of this like, you know, vague, whatever, you know. Yeah. That's not.
That just, you know, I know you haven't watched Lost, but that just reminds me, spoilers for Lost, if you haven't seen Lost, that I would say, for all intents and purposes, the spirit of the island takes on John Locke. Because we found out in like a season that John's dead, and then you see John, and it's like, oh, wow, what? That's crazy. And I really liked that little rug pull for me because I didn't see it coming.
Yeah, but they thought he was real in that sense, right? Like they wasn't like a haunting thing or a vision thing like that. They thought it was actually John, right? Until it turned out to be like not John. That's the thing, is like they're all seeing it, right? So like that would be a different kind of show. You know what I'm saying? I don't know that that's Yellowjackets, right? In essence, you know. No,
that's sort of what it reminded me of briefly. I'm just gonna keep drawing comparisons to
If they want to do it, then go and do it.
They're gonna do it. They're gonna do it.
But again, that leads me to believe like what does the show want to be if not just another Lost kind of thing? Because if you're gonna keep on bringing up Lost, then what are they doing differently?
Yeah. Well, it's Lost in, I don't know much about Twin Peaks, but I hear this show's getting a lot of parallels to Twin Peaks as well. So I don't ever want to see like a full-scale rehash of things we've already seen, but there's a reason that shows like Twin Peaks and Lost gather such a fan base. So I'm interested to see. I think Yellowjackets can have something really unique, and I feel like with these first 2 episodes, I'm waiting for them to really hook me in, if that makes sense. Like I'm ready. I want them to give me something that I'm not expecting. And I don't want to spend the whole season trying to hypothesize what the next twist is going to be. I just want to be along for the ride. So.
You have any thoughts about next episode?
I am most interested to see how they all deal with the fact that they ate Jackie. I'm very interested to see more of Elijah Wood and how Misty plays out. I am less invested in Kevin and Matt and whatever fuck the police are doing with Shauna. And I would love to see more of the girl that's with Lottie. If we spend more time on Lottie's little resort, whatever the fuck she's doing, I would really like to see more of that girl. Because we just keep seeing her in like little flashes each episode. Like she got a little hello in this one, and I just feel like there's a reason we keep seeing her, and I want to know why. I hope she's not just some random, you know what I mean? I'm going to be so upset if at the end of this, she's no one. I'm going to be like, I was your ride or die for 10 episodes, and she's just some cute girl that works for Lottie. I'm going to be very
Makes her
sad.
smoothies.
Oh, yeah, she's a smoothie
Wrongly,
girl.
you know?
I'm an idiot.
Lottie's such a Karen this episode.
Oh my God, that's actually really funny. Do you think if Nat wasn't there that she would have made that girl go back and make her another smoothie?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? And she just accepts it because Nat's there and she doesn't want to seem like a total B?
Well,
I wondered, she was obviously unhappy with her smoothie, and I wondered why she decided last minute to just take it, because I was like, she's going to make that girl go make her another smoothie. I didn't realize she cared that much about Nat's opinion to just like alter what she was going to do.
Well, she's manipulating Nat, I think, still, and trying to get her to believe certain things. So I don't know. Again, it's like everything ends up being like, no, we stopped you from dying, Nat, and all this kind of stuff. But she's not. There's something else going on with Lottie. She brought her there. She brought her there for a reason. She was there with Travis. Whatever the wilderness is doing with her, she's the harbinger of whatever it is. You can say the showrunners say that she's not evil, but I think she's up to something. And so I think it's just about, let's not let on. Don't let Nat in on like that I'm whatever.
Doing
it's like
some
I can make
spooky
something
shit.
whatever,
All right.
Also, like Nat also like practically killed this person, so she's not trying to like make it even worse. It's like, okay, you're dealing with this, I'll accept this
It's
movie.
fine.
Just forget about it. You can stop doing
You got stabbed with a fork, it's fine. I'll
Okay.
take the shitty smoothie.
Well,
It's
if there's nothing else, I think we can end it there.
right.
Meat is finally back on the menu. And we'll see where this what we're Codependent Content. You can find us at on social media. I'm at Mattias Allegro in most places. Shannon is Shannon Grace Riley. You can email us at codependentcontent@gmail.com. Tell us what you think. Do you enjoy Jackie in The Haunting? Do you think that Shauna's daughter is alive or not alive, or what's going on with this whole kid situation? Like whose daughter? What's going on? Email us codependentcontent@gmail.com. Find us on Discord, where we do record this live every Monday. You can comment on YouTube. You can watch this on Spotify and engage in the polls, do whatever. Until next time, Shannon, I'd like to invite you out next week, probably Friday, but I don't know because my schedule obviously doesn't keep up with the Yellowjackets schedule or whatever.
Right.
But would you like to watch Yellowjackets with me next week?
I will clear my weekend for you, Mattias.
Great. Well, we'll see you all there.